basically what happens is whenever the population density increases in a certain area, that's when the space has to start expanding. And to determine the population density, the total population is divided by the amount of area that is needed for these people to live in. In a rural county in Winnebago, Wisconsin, a population density of 138 people per square kilometer, measured to the amount of people in a Hong Kong city of Kowloon, is 1,924,563 people per square kilometer. So with that in mind, that many people in one area is just not enough space for actually people to live in. In order to have a proper way of life, I guess you're going to need a lot more land, and that's what we don't have. 70% of this planet is actually water, and the other 30% is land, but not all of it is livable. About 20% of the land is livable, and some of those areas actually have harsh conditions due to climate change, and they're unable to be occupied by human beings.
That's all you guys have time-wise.
Jada, your crew.
Garrett, maybe you can move this way and you guys move down just a little bit, that you can kind of face, like you two can kind of face them, and then when you talk, you can just face us. That's better, thank you.
Okay, well, when you said that most of the world is 70% water, well, you also didn't factor in the account that there is entire countries that a large portion of the entire country is uninhabitable. Well, uninhabited. Like examples of Russia, United States, our Midwest, there's literally several thousand people living in counties. So when you factor in the cities of the East Coast and the West Coast, you don't really, hold on, you don't really, hold on, I'm sorry. Can I restart that whole thing?
What
Yeah, you can go.
yeah.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I got lost in my facts, I'm sorry.
Mostly what he said was correct, but according to the Climate and Capitalism, which is a publisher who studies population growth, between 1950 and 2000, world population increased by 140%, which is pretty extreme, but experts predict that a rise of 50% between 2000 and 2050, and also just an 11% raise in the 50 years following that. So technically the population would be going down, and also
Wait a minute, can you say that again? Why is the population technically going down?
well, because there's a 140% raise from 1950 to 2000, which is pretty extreme, but then experts predict a rise of only 50% between 2000 and 2050, and just an 11% increase in population in the next 50 years following that.
Do you have any statistics on how many children people are having
There is,
in
according,
this particular
well,
period?
within 2008, a December study in 2008 showed that the U.S. Census Bureau predicts a steady decline of 0.5 annual population growth, and the number of children per women that they had fell from 4.9 to 2.7 in 2000. That's the most recent. So within the last 10 years, that's declining. And also when you compare all the people in the world, that's an issue if you're just blaming the people, but a quote I found was, blaming too many people is like blaming too many trees for causing bushfires. For example, there's a lot of trees, and if you just blame that instead of thinking of other solutions, such as economy and just finding other ways to live, it's really, you don't want to just focus on one thing. We should be trying to find other solutions to find living spaces.
Javen also had an interesting topic he wanted to share.
You discussed that that most of the planet is comprised of water. Well, I like to direct people to the image on the left. That is an idea, a concept by a Japanese company that is going to put like cities on near the equator in the Pacific Ocean, because around the equator it's a lot less susceptible to climate change, like hurricanes and all that. But it can hold from, as it states here, it'll be in a radius of 1 kilometer. It can hold anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 people. And basically, the way it would work is that it also is like a greenhouse, and it conserves energy. It doesn't emit CO2 like many other ideas. This is not the first one. Only problem that is right now there isn't as much technology to actually make this happen, but 10, 20 years from now, the concept actually can become a reality with the technology as it's growing. We're gonna do a YouTube video to explain better what actually is in these, as I said, lily pad cities, because that's what they really are. Oh. This is a different form of it.
In future, could we live on the water if needed? Architect Vincent Calabou has envisioned an innovative solution. His futuristic concept, titled LilyPad, would essentially allow a city to reside on water. The metropolis would float and house as many as 50,000 people. The design bears a resemblance to a spaceship, however it is referred to as an ecopolis. The construction materials would include polyester fibers and titanium dioxide, which would soak up the atmosphere's pollution. An artificial lagoon is submerged, creating ballast for the floating city. The designer notes, the multifunctional programming is based on 3 marinas and 3 mountains dedicated respectively to the work, the shops, and the entertainments. There will also be what is called planted housing crossed by alleys and trees outlined organically. The underside of the floating city will reportedly serve as a home to oceanic plants. How do you like the LilyPad concept?
Alright, that is one form of that. It basically it allows more space to for the Earth to be populated. And another aspect, another concept on the land side is the Times Square 3015. This is a concept. It's one of they had a concept contest. So hopefully in a few years they can actually start drawing up plans. And these are actually this is be New York City in a tower. It would have beaches, it would have zoos, it would have college, it would have businesses. 3015, 100 years away, but still, these are solutions that can be placed in the next few decades that can actually solve this problem a little bit better.
Here, wait, what's our next question? Is it resources?
We're actually getting to that right now. Actually, no.
Religion. It's religion.
It's religion. So, gentlemen, as the question states there, what about religious groups? What are the opinions of different religious communities in regards to population regulation policies?
I have a question. I feel like it's not been made clear what other than, well, some of the architectural things to help with overpopulation, if indeed we believe we have that at that point to the degree that people think we might. But I want to hear more about what actual population control that you were thinking that are maybe in place right now.
It gets there. We have stuff.
Okay, because, you're talking about it now in comparison to religion,
It
but.
all ties together.
All right, because I feel like it needs to be defined more strongly so that I understand what you're driving at.
All right. So once again, what are the opinions of different religious communities in regards to population regulation policies in countries? Who wants to go first?
So, the 3 main religions, which is Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, each have very similar stances upon population control. There's actually a quote from the Bible from Genesis 28, verse 1. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground. It's also known that Christianity, actually the Pope from the Roman Catholic Church, they do not allow abortion, contraception of any kind. So they are directly opposed to population control. And so that the movement of population control would actually it may offend people of the religious.
I have to jump in here though.
Okay.
It is not that they are totally against population control. It is the methods that are used.
That are
because they believe that there is a natural method of population control, and a lot of Catholics use it to keep from from.
Yeah, for like financial reasons. Stuff.
And for financial reasons, exactly.
Okay. And so, Judaism, some forms of birth control are acceptable. For example, when a couple already has 2 children, or if they're both in the same school, that's pretty basic. In Islam, they have three rules. As an offspring, they have the right of both the husband and the wife. The birth control method should be used for both parties' consent. So, one of their rules with that in regards is that both parents have to agree if they want to abort their child or not, which is their belief. It should not cause permanent sterility, and that means that the act of birth control should not allow one of the members to not be able to have children anymore, and that it should not harm the body, which is, again, not allowing them to have children anymore. And so it is also, on the same religious aspect, a moral right for every human to be entitled to life. And so I don't think anyone can play God, in a sense, and tell people, hey, you can only have 1 kid, you shouldn't be able to do that. Because, honestly, personally, I don't really like when people tell me what I can and can't do. I kind of just, I like what I, like, I am a strong believer in my beliefs, and I really act upon my morals. Thank you, Jade. And so, with that in mind, I think everyone should be entitled to life, and that population control takes away those freedoms that you should be entitled to.
And that's about your guys' times. Jesse, do you have anything to say?
This is sad to say, however, this is actually the side where the against is actually more correct in this sense. However, there are some small things that can be argued about the religion side of this. From the book of Genesis, God says, "Be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth." He said this directly after the creation of Jesus and directly after the flood that destroyed the whole population. Now, that's understandable. This quote makes sense whenever incidents such as the Great Flood did occur. That's when all the people were wiped out. So yes, population had to regrow somehow. We needed to keep producing and creating new people. But now, today, this is where it kind of needs to decrease, because now that we have enough people, we're trying to find space and get more resources and try to support all these people now, which wasn't a problem such back then because everything was more plentiful. Now that we keep using more resources, there's really not much left. And then along with the Christianity side, there's some people that are actually not changing their faith, but they're starting to see how that abortion and things like this can be a solution if what Kyle was saying is it was a pro-choice. They have the choice to decide if they want to keep the child or not. And some want to believe that it's in order to save the population and keep going what we have right now, and then some just say it's because it's not the right time for them, or it's something that needs to be held off. But really, this is the side that the against really has the upper hand.
If I could step in real quick. Kyle, you talked about one-child policies. I'd like to bring up China's one-child policy. Back when it was initially instituted by Chairman Mao in the 80s, yes, this was an extreme form of control where the government did tell people that they were only allowed to have 1 child, which is very immoral and wrong and led to a lot of problems. There were 336 million abortions, 196 million sterilizations between 1971 and when the rule until the rule was in effect for people who were just trying to keep this 1 child. However, since then the legislature has changed to be less harsh and to make people more open to actually having the 1 child rule by, instead of forcing people saying you can only have 1 child, it eliminated that and created financial incentivization for families who only have 1 child, giving them primary housing and government subsidies so they have more money for their family just because they only have 1 child. So it's no longer that they're forcing you to have 1 child. They're saying you should think into having only one child. The world is growing at too large of a